They've been out of the music scene for 2 years now, but Black Sabbath is back with vengeance. That group has just released a brand new album. Although the faces have changed since the group first formed in 1968, Black Sabbath's musical spirit is still pure metal.
All hope was on the Eternal Idol album to spark a renewed fire in the Black Sabbath brand. Unfortunately, it performed less than stellar. On top of that, it was Black Sabbath's most expensive album to date. The abbreviated tour that followed did nothing to help matters. Those in charge of the business side left Black Sabbath in debt. And Warner Brothers would ice the cake by dropping the band completely. The first thing for Iommi was that he needed to find some business representation that would help solve all their monetary woes. Some people he could trust with what could be just one last shot to turn things around. Tony had kept in contact with Ian Gillan following the Born Again tour. Phil Banfield was the man behind Ian's business affairs, so he was mentioned as a possible suitor. Tony Iommi was pleased with the meetings with Phil, so he was hired, along with Phil's partner, Ernest Chapman. Tony Iommi and his new team puts the whole band up on blocks. The first order of business was, of course, financial. The band's accountant, who worked on behalf of Patrick Meehan, hadn't kept up with proper tax payments. It had gotten so bad that tax professionals did an inventory of Iommi's house, including his array of instruments, so the new team had to come to a deal pretty quickly on tax payments. The next thing was to find a record label to roll the dice on Sabbath. Many meetings were held, but very few showed any serious interest. You have to see it from the record label's point of view, and rightfully so. Black Sabbath had the image of poor sales in Seventh Star and the Eternal Idol, a revolving door of musicians, a deep hole of unpaid bills and press obscurity. However, one man stepped up, Miles Copeland and his label, IRS Records.
There's also allegations, of course, of a more sinister undercurrent to your business affairs because of your brother's agent's called the FBI, and your record company's called the IRS, which is, of course, the Internal Revenue Service, tax people in America. Band are called the police. You have a management company called LAPD, which could be interpreted as Los Angeles Police Department, and so forth.
Well, it was all fluke, actually. The agency's called Frontier Booking International, which just so happened to be the FBI. And the record company is called the International Record Syndicate, happened to be the IRS. And the management company is Los Angeles Personal Direction, which happened to be LAPD. And we're just a bunch of fascists.
Miles is the older brother of the Police drummer Stuart Copeland. Miles managed the Police during that band's run, and continued to manage Sting's solo career, while also managing the merchandising catalog of both the Police and Sting. IRS was primarily bankrolled by the success of that catalog.
It's rumoured that in the case of the Police, you actually take 50% and they only take 50%.
That's absolutely untrue. Absolutely untrue. It's the other way around. He actually doesn't get 50%.
You get 75.
We get the 50%.
But IRS had a fair amount of success, beginning with the second wave of punk music in the 1980s, but they would gain more mainstream artists such as the Go-Go Girls, Fine Young Cannibals, the Bangles, and R.E.M. Black Sabbath would be a catalyst for a sub-label titled IRS Metal. Copeland's selling line was that he didn't want to pay them to make an IRS product, he was going to pay them to make a Black Sabbath album. Terry Chimes has said that he left Black Sabbath, that he really likes to be in a band for only a year, so the experience is short but doesn't get old.
We decided we need a good name band, name musicians for credibility, build the credibility up. And Cozy's name come up, and Cozy's name's come up a few times actually over the years, because we wanted to get together a long time ago.
Cozy began his career in 1968, playing the same circuits where the future stars of Black Sabbath and Led Zeppelin were rising.
I met Tony back in Birmingham here, along with Robert Plant and John Bonham and all the people from Zeppelin. And it was just sort of a very close-knit family group in Birmingham in those days. We always used to sort of hang out together. We all got drunk one night in a club, I think, didn't we?
Well, a few nights, I think, on it, yeah.
Anyway, we met in Birmingham, England, and then our paths sort of took off in different directions. Obviously, Tony and Sabbath went one way. I went down the hill from there, but I managed to climb back up again, and here I am in the band.
Cozy would make his name with the likes of Rainbow and Whitesnake. Cozy was always busy with those groups or his dozens of other projects, so he was never available, but now he was free, so it was the right time to join Black Sabbath.
When Bill Wood, the original drummer, decided to go on to pastures new, and Tony asked me to phone me up and asked me if he'd like me to come along and join the band. And at that point I was working with another band called Rainbow, and it was just a little difficult to suddenly jump ship and move on to into the Sabbath situation, so I turned it down, which was probably a very bad move on my part, because about a year after that I left Rainbow and was stuck on my own for a while. But the offer came again in 82, 83, after the Ronnie Dio era, and then again in 1985, 86. And this by this time I'd had a couple of years working with ELP, which had turned out to be a bit of a disaster in the end. And I decided that I really would like to get involved with Tony on a more permanent basis and get involved with Sabbath. And I've been very happy doing so since then, because it's been a real meeting of the sort of minds as far as Tony and my ideas were concerned. And I was also able to come in and put together something that was falling apart at the seams. And it was obvious that at some point in the future we would probably work together. It was just a question. I didn't figure out it was going to take 20 years before we ended up working together.
The Eternal Idol tour had ended during December of 1987 with Tony Iommi, Jeff Nichols, Tony Martin, Joe Burt, and Terry Chimes. Joe Burt was still in the band, by his accounts, until February 1988. He expressed that he did a few jams with Tony Iommi and Cozy, but he didn't quite gel with Cozy, so he was fired after that. There would be a one-off charity gig on May the 29th of 1988, with Jeff filling in on bass, and Terry Chimes still on drums. The question is, how does Terry Chimes fit into the charity gig in May of 1988, if according to Joe, Cozy was already working with Tony Iommi by February 1988. Cozy would years later explain the situation. Yes, he did rehearse with Tony Iommi in early 1988, and he fully intended to join Sabbath. However, the first half of 1988 Cozy was pretty much booked solid for session work, and Tony Iommi did want Cozy to keep his word. Terry Chimes was simply filling in for the charity gig as a favor. During Cozy's busy time, Tony Iommi was dealing with the business side of things, so the timing for everyone worked out fine.
It's been a joint effort, hasn't it, all the way through?
It's nice for me to get involved from the start of the project. Yeah. I mean, I've done so many albums for other bands where I've come in at the end and just put the drums on. And this time I've actually had a chance to write with Tony.
So you got a big feel towards you're part of the actual band.
I think it really makes a lot of difference if everybody can get involved and really put their little stamp on it.
Cozy Powell was not just a hired player, he truly was a partner for Tony Iommi. Cozy was involved in practically every decision. The first question was what to call this new endeavor. The two were considering a name change, thinking that perhaps it would be an easier way to go, but Cozy explained it the best in 1990. He said that no matter what the name, Tony Iommi would get asked, "What's the news for Black Sabbath?" On the other side of the coin, a new name would open up their options. Adding a second guitar player for one, the question of who would be the singer was opened up as well. They might be able to get the likes of Ronnie James Dio or David Coverdale as the singer. Even Led Zeppelin's Robert Plant was mentioned, leaving the future of Tony Martin at the crossroads. As luck would have it, Cozy listened to the Eternal Idol album and loved Tony Martin's voice, so he brought Tony on board the upcoming Forcefield album The Talisman, another one of Cozy's booked sessions. This music was much softer, showing a different side to Tony Martin's voice. Cozy was taken back by Tony's talent and easygoing workmanship, feeling that a continuity approach would be the best way to go. He felt that Tony was the right man to front Sabbath. However, he had to reassure Iommi of this fact. While Iommi did like Martin, there was a factor of him not having a proven name yet, but Iommi agreed to give him another go. Cozy stayed over at Iommi's house for the month of August 1988, coming up with the musical foundation of the next album.
Cozy came to my house and stayed with me for a month, and or 3 weeks or something, and we just, put bits and dabs down on tape and swapped ideas. It was very helpful, really. And then we go down to Richbridge Studios and play them live, play them loud, which really worked out well. We got the album together within 3 weeks.
It was described as a peaceful writing session, where the two would have a few drinks while the tape recorder was going. They started with an older riff of Iommi's, but every song was completely new.
Because when Tony and I got together initially, I got a few ideas sort of scratched together on one tape, and I went up to Tony's house, and he said, "Oh, you want some riffs?" And he went into the cupboard and pulled out 4 bags, the shopping bags full of cassettes, and there must have been about 30 or 40 riffs on each cassette. So I reckon he should open a shop. Riffs for sale, proprietor Tony Iommi. This man here is the master of the metal riff, just so as you all know, Mr. Iommi, and a great player who's always been a leader of the field, I think. In heavy metal, this man is, I think, the originator of it all. So, I mean, it's a great honour to come in and play for Sabbath.
Robert Bruce owned the well-known Rich Bitch Studios, where the band had their new starting off point. Instantly during rehearsals, Cozy fitted in with the 2 Tonys and Jeff Nichols, but the hunt was on for the right person to fill the bass position. It is no secret that Geezer Butler rehearsed with the band prior to the Eternal Idol tour, but turned down the position as he simply did not want Patrick Meehan anywhere near his career, but now the band was under a new management team. The story goes that Geezer Butler's wife and manager, Gloria Butler, informed Tony Iommi that Geezer wanted to rejoin, but that he wasn't ready just yet. With that in mind, the others begin writing for what will become Headless Cross. Unlike the Eternal Idol, Tony Martin was involved on the creative process. He was able to see firsthand what making an album with Tony Iommi was like, just how fast Iommi can come up with riffs. He said that the band would go through boxes of older Iommi riffs on tape. However, Iommi would write newer ones faster than they could even listen to the older ones. Tony Martin is the primary lyricist, with the help of a word or two from Cozy and Jeff. Being a guitar player before he was a singer, Tony Martin could speak to the guys on a musical level. He would even show Tony Iommi some chords and miscellaneous pieces of music. Iommi always listened and at least tried Martin's ideas, picking a few of them as needed. Cozy said that in just one day of writing, the basics of the songs Headless Cross, When Death Calls, and Nightwing were written.
Tony Martin was the singer, had been on the Eternal Idol album, and we just pushed the thing together from there and worked on the situation from that point, and spent about 6 months trying to get the feel of the new album, which was subsequently called the Headless Cross, together, and then it all just came from there. We got the initial tracks done. Jeff Nichols did some keyboard work on the album, so we pulled the thing together from a very shaky start, and from there we then went on to the next album and so on, and it came together quite quickly once we'd started. It just needed a little bit of a steadying action, which I'm pleased to say I got involved with from that point.
Recording began in the last days of August 1988 at the Sound Mill Studio in Leeds, with final productions in November, having Wood Cray, Berkshire, and Amazon Studios used in the middle as well. Tony Iommi and Cozy Powell decided that they would take the helm and produce the album themselves, with Cozy producing the drums and the vocals for the most part, while Iommi did all the rest. Cozy has had a hand in album production before, but this was his first major official credit for doing so. Iommi would also illustrate that IRS left the album totally up to him. There was no pressure or interference, keeping their promise from when they had signed the band. Iommi and Cozy would let Tony Martin do what he wanted on the lyric front.
Lyrically, I'd had a little chance to think about what I was going to do with Black Sabbath because, well, Dio had sort of mastered the whole fantasy rock type thing. Brilliantly done. It's just you can't go there because Dio did it so well. So I wasn't going to try and copy that. And I thought, okay, what do I do? So I came up with the idea of like themes of a kind. So Headless Cross was like English history, and I'm really interested in all this historical stuff. And so I sort of researched it and did as much as close as I could to that subject.
Headless Cross.
Do you want to tell him?
Shall I tell him?
Tell him then.
All right, I'll tell him. Headless Cross is based on a story on a village that Tony and I live near. I actually lived there for a couple of years. And the story is basically about the people and their belief in the cross. They used to hang crosses in their houses and around the neck and erect big crosses and stuff, because they all died of a disease. We called it the plague. And so the story is based on their belief and the disease that killed them all.
Headless Cross is an actual village in Redditch, England. During the bubonic plagues, millions of people in Europe and Asia lost their lives. The practice of better hygiene and quarantine would bring the end of the epidemic. Vinegar was seen as a disinfectant at the time, so these stone structures were built with a pot of vinegar on top. These structures were called a headless cross. Merchants and customers would leave their coins to sit in these pots overnight, making them plague-free. The name of the album and the direction of the overall package would gain its name from this song. The keyboard track that starts the album is titled The Gates of Hell, which there is a pub in Headless Cross called The Gates Hang Well. Filmed on a bitterly cold night at the Battle Abbey complex located in Sussex, they started filming at 7 p.m., and it was 7 a.m. before they finished. Nothing seemed to work right until after at least 20 takes. Cozy was getting more and more piss-drunk as the night went on, drinking gin to help keep himself warm. Cozy noted that stone doesn't burn, so it seemed ridiculous to him that fans would believe it. That and the amount of time it took to set up the shots.
We're coming right up to date again to the Headless Cross album with another track that I know you like well. This one's called Devil and Daughter!
Devil and Daughter would follow as the second single. Lyrically, it was about if the devil had a daughter, she would have his black power, but with femininity. The combination of the two would be the true definition of evil. Various iterations of Devil and Daughter has been spanned across literature and film. The music video for the song never made it past the treatment stage. One reason given is that the band was on the road so much, with no decent breaks long enough to film anything. If you look at the lyrics for Blue Murder's Valley of the Kings, you will notice some identical lyrics, as both songs were written by Tony Martin. In 1988, while Black Sabbath was being settled, Tony Martin had written some songs with Blue Murder's guitarist and singer John Sykes.
The On Sykes thing, wasn't that done after the Eternal Idol album? The John Sykes, the track you did?
Yeah.
I mean, what happened? Were you just helping him out, or what?
Well, I went down to do some session work with him in his studio, and he asked me if I'd like to join the band. You see, and they were on the way to record the album in Canada,
with Bob Rock producing it. And I talked to my manager, and he had a talk with the business people, and they said it's a bad deal. It's just terrible. Don't go. So I said, John, I'm afraid I'm not going to take up your offer on this one. I'm going to have to skip it. When I started recording the Headless Cross album, at that point, I didn't know John Sykes was going to use that track. In here somewhere, there's a couple of lines which is the same thing. But that's just the way it turned out. It was like, we released this, and then John released that, and I went, help, what do you do? There's nothing you could do about it.
As luck would have it, both Cozy Powell and Ray Gillen would be involved with Blue Murder for a short time as well.
It's a story about an experience I had when I was sleeping. It's called When Death Calls.
When Death Calls, if I can just purvey a little story about that. I mean, Cozy Powell was a dream to watch in the studio. He was so on his game. I learned a lot from Cozy Powell. How he engaged with the song was really impressive. He wasn't just a drummer. He would accent to the lyrics even, you know, so that he would make sure that the song was one whole thing, not just a drummer playing in the background and then us playing over the top of it.
Very determined and, you know, let's get on with it sort of guy. And he would go so far with it, and he'll say, no, I'll be all right, okay. I can do this. I'll let you know if I need any help. And then he'll get part way through it, and then with that one, he stopped. He said, you're going to have to sing something. I need to hear where it is you're going with it. So I put a vocal line down on it, and it was When Death Calls.
And he started When Death Calls, and he got about halfway through, and he stopped the recording. He just stopped playing. He went, wait. And he just shouted down the microphone, is there enough death in this? I think it needs more death. And then carried on playing. Just started it up again.
I am completely crazy, of course. You understand that, haven't you?
On the album for the solo. What song does he appear on? Well, he's your mate, old chap, you can.
Yeah. Well, yeah. What do you want to hear about Brian? He does play on When Death Calls in the solo. Didn't know that, did you?
He's actually taller than Tony as well, which is a
just a little
really
bit more. He does
piece of
wear
information.
clogs.
Yeah, he does.
It's the same clogs that when he started, he still got. He's been a good friend for 20 years, and so I think it's about time we had I've never had another guitar player play on Sabbath album before, so it's quite a first now. It's but he's one chap who's a definite exception, and I'm glad he did. Great player.
Yeah,
great player.
good solo as well.
And then there's Kill in the Spirit World, which is on the B-side of the album. That was written about a cottage in Wales that's haunted, and that's the story about that.
With another track that's called Call of the Wild.
Call of the Wild would be the third single from the album. The song is based on Ben-Hur. Tony Martin, while in Rome, stood in the famous Colosseum. Martin would later read a book about Ben-Hur, deciding to base a song off him without mentioning the name. Black Moon was a song that was recorded during the Eternal Idol sessions, and was released as the B-side to the Shining single. However, the band was not happy with the song, so it was decided to re-record it for Headless Cross.
Nightwing was a story about barn owls.
About what?
Barn owls, you know, birds.
Oh yeah.
An owl that we have in England, and it hunts at night, and it's looking at the dark side of a hunter, a night hunter. So it's a story about nature, if you like. And people think that you're involved in Satanism, and eating babies, and, you know, biting the heads off bats.
Yeah.
But they're all stories about life.
Did they make you feel part of the band back then?
Not really.
For him, the experience writing and making the album was overall good. He gelled with the other guys and there were laughs along the way, but once again looking back, there was still an element of him being an outsider.
I have to say, the guys are great to work, and I know I make jokes or fun of like the way they work and the management and the rest of the stuff, but they were nice guys. It wasn't like they were being particularly nasty or anything. It was really hard work for me. I'm 12 years younger than all of the guys in Sabbath, so there was always a gap between us. They had so much more experience than me. Our circle of friends were different, so you know it was hard work to sort of. I could never really catch them up. They were always going to be 12 years at least ahead of me. They've been doing this stuff for years. I was just like, what am I doing here? Yeah. So it was hard work, but you know it's an important thing, and not much to complain about really.
And to go back on Headless Cross, the song Nightwing is like one of my favorite vocal performances you've done. And am I correct by saying that you wanted to redo it and you and Cozy had it out and then you went and redid it and turned out you used the first take after all?
Yep. It was really weird. I'm still trying at that point. I'm still trying to impress the guys, you know, in many ways. Who is this singer anyway? But I was trying and trying and trying. Anyway, I did the first take for Nightwing, and Cozy Powell was sort of directing everything at the time. And Cozy went, right, that's cool. Well done, chap. And I went, what? No, I've got to do it again. No, that's fine. It's good. We got it. Said, no, you don't understand. I have to do it again. He went, no, you're not doing it again. I said, come on, man. I got to do it again. That's not it. He went, you're not doing it again. And we had this little fight from the control room to the studio. And he said, look, okay, I'll let you try 2 more takes. And if you can better this, we'll use it. He said, but you won't. So I said, okay, thank you. Right, cool. So run it again. So I run it again. And I couldn't. I couldn't do it. Whether he put me off or something, I don't know what happened, but I just couldn't better it. So he ended up saying, I told you, right, and that's the one they used.
Well, are you happy with it? Because I think it's phenomenal.
Oh, if I look back on it now, I think actually, that was pretty cool.
They still haven't received any word from Geezer on his date of availability, so they needed someone to fill in until that word came. Cozy puts forward Lawrence Cottle as a possible suitor.
You recorded with the guys from Black Sabbath, with Tommy Ian and Geezer, and did you get to meet Ozzy Osbourne?
No, Ozzy wasn't doing the band at the time. The singer when I did it was called Tony Martin.
Oh yeah, Tony. Yeah. Well, that's a very famous piece of work you did with them.
Yeah, it was great fun. It was a really good laugh. At that time I was doing a gig at Ronnie Scott's that week, so I was recording with Black Sabbath in the day and then zipping over to Ronnie Scott's and tearing it up with Mornington Lockett there doing some heavy bop, so it was nice diversity.
And they have a fairly small form. Isn't like 3 musicians and the singer? Is it a power trio behind the vocalist? Or?
Sabbath?
Yeah.
That album was called Headless Cross. It was Cozy Powell was on drums, Jeff Nichols was on keyboards, and Tony on guitar, and Tony Martin singing.
Although not well known in the rock world, he was a well-respected session player. Iommi hires Cottle on Cozy's recommendation. Cottle, although not a full member, did take part in the Headless Cross music video. The thought was that since he did such a great job on the album, he deserved to have some screen time. Plus Sabbath needed someone to fill that spot, and they just didn't want another random guy off the street, like in The Shining's music video, although Iommi did later mention that he looked out of place. This album was really a turning point in Black Sabbath's sound. Keyboards had been used as a source of score music, but for this album the keyboards would be more utilized. Tony Iommi had always been the backbone of the band's sound, and that would never change.
It was different band. I mean, we were quite technical. Jeff Nichols had really changed the way that Sabbath worked, because he was providing keyboard pads and atmosphere, of which then Tony Iommi could play over. So he was exploring all kinds of layers of guitars, layers of keyboards. And then when I joined, we started doing harmonies, layers of harmonies, and it all got very technical. And come to do it live, and I went, hang on, I'm the only singer here. So who's going to sing all these voices then? So we had to sort of improvise, and we started using samplers for all the choruses and like backing vocals and stuff like that, triggered from Jeff Nichols. And he was singing as well, a little bit. But it became a very technical thing, which is why, and I do understand why, some of the original Sabbath fans think that, the basic 4-piece Sabbath is, the original, where it sort of came from, where it should be.
Sabbath came along, Black Sabbath, and they created a whole dark music, hard rock, heavier, and then people take it slightly further and further away.
So this is what they call evolution.
Exactly, yeah. Everything evolves,
Absolutely.
I mean, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there was no electronic music. We play what we play and we believe in what we do. I mean, it's very easy to go, I will do something that is perhaps more popular now to have a hit record. I could do that tomorrow.
The album would be finished in November of 1988. Sabbath had some further business dealings, so Cozy agreed to record the next Gary Moore album, After the War, as well as the subsequent European leg of Gary's tour, with someone else fulfilling the American leg in the rest of the world.
A question on everybody's lips. Why did
Who
you
am I?
Why did you leave Gary Moore at the beginning of the tour, leaving Gary to cancel some shows?
Well, I didn't actually leave. I was replaced, should we say that, to be tactful. We started rehearsals, and to be quite honest with you, the chemistry wasn't working properly. He was asking me to play certain the styles of certain tracks his way, and I don't bend too much on the road. I might do in the studio, but on the road, I just play the way I think is right for the tracks. And unfortunately, it just got worse and worse. And at the end of the day, just about 6 days before the first show, he decided that he wanted to get somebody to do the whole tour and do it his way, and so I was replaced.
There you have it, viewers. Now we know.
So it's not really your fault, not anybody's fault then, really.
It's just one of those things. It happens. I mean, most people in bands these days, you know, we all have problems from time to time, but that just got rather public. So. But you know, he's a great player, and I wish him well.
And so, contrary to a lot of the reports, I didn't walk out, but I was replaced. And it's probably better for Gary and better for me, because it was enabled Gary to get on with a drummer that could do the whole of the European tour and the American tour. Yeah. Because I was going to have to stop halfway through anyway to concentrate on the Sabbath's material. Because obviously, having spent 6 months of last year working on this album, and it was just totally unfortunate that both came out at the same time. But of course, as usual, I got it in the neck from the press and just about everybody else for supposedly walking out. But
you didn't?
I didn't walk out, no. I
Okay.
don't walk out on anybody a week before a tour. That's unprofessional, and I'd like to think I am at least professional.
The album cover was designed by Kevin Wemlett. The mainline sleeve was in black and white, while in some territories it was in full color. Released in mid-April 1989, the album was met with mostly positive critical reviews.
Critics were almost giving up on Black Sabbath at this point because they'd gone through so many changes of direction and changes of singer. They were reaching the point of almost of no return really.
But we just hope that people like this. You know, this album, this Headless Cross album it's probably one of the most important albums that Black Sabbath have made.
Headless Cross, and people may not agree with me, I think it's the best Black Sabbath album after Heaven and Hell. I think it's even better than Mob Rules. I think it's a magnificent record. It was a record where it all came together and gelled for a new era, right at the end of the 1980s. Great musically, great songs, it gelled, it worked. It was a wonderful album. It was as if, because things had gone so wrong for so long, there was no pressure anymore, and they wrote this magnificent album, just full of wonderful tunes.
It's a challenge. A lot of people have written the band off, and there's a lot of bad things been said about the band in the past. And the only way you can really come back and put all those things to rest are to come back with a great album.
Headless Cross was the beginning of an upswing in the fortunes of Black Sabbath, certainly the post-Aussie Black Sabbath.
Headless Cross is Tony Martin's finest hour with Black Sabbath.
I thought Headless Cross certainly had its moments. I think the song Headless Cross, again, is another Sabbath classic.
They create a very bombastic, loud, heavy rock album.
I don't think Headless Cross was a great album. I think it was a good album. I can remember when it first came out, I think it was IRS Records, and a lot of press was written about it, and Kerrang and so on, and they kept ranting and raving about how fantastic the album was. And it was good, but it wasn't fantastic.
It's not regarded in the same terms as, say, a Paranoid or a Masters of Reality or a Heaven and Hell. And that's probably because the quality of all the songs doesn't hold up to the quality of all the songs on those other records. But it's certainly a very, very good record, and it's still one that you can listen to today and get a lot out of.
I think it laid down a marker. It wasn't the best post-Aussie album, but it was among them. And I think it showed the way that Sabbath were going to try and progress through the 80s and into the 90s.
Album sales throughout the European continent were respectable, charting in the top 25 in Sweden, Germany and Switzerland. It reached 31 in the UK. Its highest chart position was in Germany, peaking at number 18. It was the highest selling album they had ever had in Germany at this time. The sales in these countries were good enough that the album turned a profit. Unfortunately, it wasn't a huge hit in the United States, where in a lot of respects was where it counted the most, not even cracking the top 100 in the States. Number 115 was the only spot the album could reach, but with that being said, The Eternal Idol only sold 180,000 units in the States, while Headless Cross sold 215,000 units. The album also spent 8 weeks on the Billboard charts in the States. Globally, The Eternal Idol sold 620,000 units. Headless Cross would top that with 740,000 units.
Joined us in the studio with Cozy Powell.
Hi guys.
How you doing? Should we leave now?
Let's go.
IRS Records would do a fair job of promoting the album, getting decent television airplay for the Headless Cross music video, followed by magazine covers and articles. They were also able to secure the band radio and television appearances.
And I'm enjoying it now more than I have for many years, and I think once we get out there and the kids see the band and whatever, hopefully we'll be there for another 20 years, because we've certainly got a lot to offer. And we've got a definite settled lineup now. We're really pleased with it, and we're ready to go.
Who's the new bass player then?
I'm not going to tell you.
Ah.
Well, bass player, that's the only part at the moment where there's a few contractual things where if we announce it at the moment, it might cause inconveniences. But we've got about 2 or 3 lined up anyways.
With the help of another named band member, the tour would have a better chance for success. Black Sabbath waits until the last minute for Geezer to return. Through the grapevine they learn that Geezer, instead of joining Sabbath, actually ends up joining Ozzy Osbourne's solo band. Tony Iommi and Cozy Powell were guests at London's Hippodrome on April the 26th, doing an album signing session for the fans. Neil Murray stops by to say hello to his friend Cozy. Neil and Cozy's relationship goes back to 1974, with Neil joining Cozy Powell's Hammer. Both Neil and Cozy would serve in versions of Whitesnake. Neil, Cozy, and Tony Martin would all work on the Force Field 2 album. In the course of the Hippodrome conversation, Neil is asked if he'd like to audition. Needless to say, he passed and officially joined the following week. It has been said that with all the underlining relationships between all 4 band members, that this was the most together as a unit that Black Sabbath had been since the early 1970s.
Now live on stage, what's it going to be like?
Awesome.
It certainly is. Well, I tell you what, just in rehearsals alone, I mean, it really sounds unbelievable. And I've heard, as you know, every lineup we've had. And this is by far the best lineup we've ever had. It really is powerful.
What about visually, Tony?
We're older.
I didn't mean that.
It'll be mainly we want to put over, as opposed to using monsters and stuff in stage sets. We'll have a good stage set, a good light show, but we won't go over the top. We want to put over the hard music and the power of the band, as opposed to how good we look. That is the main important thing for us, is what we can do musically. And everything else will just be around it, you know. We'll have props, of course, but it won't be to take away from the music what we're doing.
We have to get back we have to get back to the grassroots level, so as people can come and see what it's all about. They've heard it all and they've read it all. Now we want them to see it for real on stage, and I mean, there's no substitute for a live performance.
We can't wait. I mean, we're so excited about the new lineup.
The tour would begin in North America, with Silent Rage and Kingdom Come as the opening acts. Things in North America began on a promising note, with great reviews, and the first few shows were well attended. However, the following shows would decrease, plus things were costing more than what was initially figured. The promoters that IRS were using were second class. Advertisements for the shows were really lacking. This was the time before the internet, so you were dependent on word of mouth and physical materials. There were very few radio spots, concert posters and things of that sort. The rumor is that Sharon Osbourne was sabotaging the tour as well, having people take down what few advertisements that were posted. Economically it wasn't viable to finish the tour, so it was cut off about a third of the way into it. There was a concert in Mexico that was cancelled due to religious protests and the venue being inadequate. Sabbath did do press and photo shoots in Mexico for the concert, and most of the fans had no idea the show was cancelled. Germany's Axis would be the opener for the UK leg of the tour. They did such a great job as an opener that they were invited for Europe as well. Things went much better for the band in the UK, Europe and Japan. There are 3 professionally recorded gigs from this tour for the fans to enjoy, the first being September 6, 1989 at the Apollo Theatre in Manchester. This recording was done by the BBC and a truncated version was broadcast on Halloween night 1989. The complete recording has since circulated among fans. The second recording was September 24 at the Summer Arena in Vienna. Another professional recording was made in Japan on October the 19th at the Kozinenken Festival Hall. September 10th, Black Sabbath took the stage at the historic Hammersmith Odeon, with a surprise guest, that being Brian May from Queen, blessing his guitar playing on Heaven and Hell and Paranoid.
We have a mystery guest. September the 11th, it was the Colston Hall of Bristol's turn to host Sabbath,
with the surprise of Ian Gillan stepping up to sing Smoke on the Water, Tony Martin would come back out as he and Ian would split the lyrics for Paranoid. On the 15th, Ian was a guest again at the KB Hall in Copenhagen in Copenhagen. Luckily we do have good sounding audience recordings from both concerts.
We certainly missed America. We did try America, but for me, Europe was better. I gathered more fans around Europe, Russia.
Black Sabbath was one of the first bands to take advantage of Gorbachev opening Russia to Western rock bands. Black Sabbath played 14 shows at the Olympsky Hall in Moscow, from November 19th to November 28th, doing afternoon and evening shows. They also performed 12 additional shows in Leningrad. The band simply left all their equipment set up for these back-to-back shows. Without having to break down the equipment every night, Iommi and management decided to film 2 shows for a VHS release. November 25th was the date selected, so for this incredible Black Sabbath lineup, there are some professionally filmed concerts. However, we do not have them in fully produced pristine conditions. The tapes were seized by the Russians as there was a monetary disagreement.
I want to say a few words here. We want to thank you for your loyalty and your support over the past 21 years. Thank you very much.
They actually threatened to pay us in tractors. They said, "What? How about we pay you in tractors? We'll give you 20 tractors. You take them back to the UK, sell them, and you keep the money. No, just give us the fucking money."
The shows were recorded for a live album as well, and those tapes were seized too. It would be some time before Iommi was able to get all these tapes back. 2 of the songs would be released as B-sides to singles for the next Black Sabbath album Tear. Unfortunately, the film reels were damaged, clearly visible on the film, which circulates among fans, which also makes them not viable for an official release.
And just quickly as well, I mean, something that you guys did, which was one of the first things, was recorded, well, playing behind the Iron Curtain. You're one of the first bands to go over there after that kind of ban lifted in '89. I mean, what was the reaction like from the fans and the people that you met in the country at that time?
Oh, it was mad. They didn't know how to behave, really.
Okay.
And it was quite intense in some of the things, you know. We played 2 places like Moscow and Leningrad, but Moscow was like the Olympics stadium.
Yep.
40,000 people or something was in it, and we were doing 2 shows a day, one in the afternoon, one on the night, for 1.5 weeks or something. That was really intense. But they were all seated, and the first row was about, 20, 30 feet from the front of the stage, so it looked a bit vacuous at the front, but we sort of learned how to sort of, be there with them, sort of thing.
Yeah.
And a funny story about that, actually. The Moscow gig, the dignitaries were invited, the mayor, the mayor's wife, the mayor's mother, the kids, the whole entourage.
Yep.
And playing Iron Man, Iron Man, right?
Yeah.
Iommi comes over to me and digs me in the ribs. He says, "Look down there." I said, "Down where?" He said, "Down there, look down there." Our grandma was sat in the front row knitting to Iron Man. Da, very good boys, da. Knit 1, purl 1, 3. Fuck me, he said, "I've never seen anybody knitting to a Black Sabbath gig. Then we went to, we had girls' school on with us.
Yes.
Then we went to St. Petersburg, Leningrad, and then they were mad, absolutely crazy fans. They were just like, rah, throwing stuff, because they didn't really know that you shouldn't let people into a stadium with bottles. So they were throwing these things at us, and girls' school, the guitarist, she got missed by about 2 inches with a bottle that came towards her. She just saw it as the light caught it, and she managed to duck out the way, and it buried into a speaker cabinet behind her. And they had this woman that was like really, really smartly dressed, like a tight pencil skirt with high heels, and she'd come on the stage, clippy cloppy, clippy cloppy, clippy cloppy. What's she doing? And she would walk up to the microphone and take the microphone and say, what she was actually saying was, don't throw things at the band. Not good, not good. We will cancel the show. Don't throw things at the band. And then she would walk off, and then they'd start throwing shit again, and then she'd come back on the stage, I told you not throwing things at the band. Not good. Do not throw things at the band. Clippy cloppy, clippy cloppy. What the fuck me? This is like, getting daft here.
So I made a mistake joining Black Sabbath, but never mind.
Hi, we're Black Sabbath. All the guys here like to wish you all the best.
The Headless Cross album has its fans and detractors, but the album and tour was an upswing in morale, stability and profit, with Tony Martin showing that Cozy Powell was justified with the value that he placed upon him. The brand for Black Sabbath as an entity finished the tour with a renewed sense of purpose. They had a cross to bear and survived their baptism by fire.